If you're thinking about changing schools, why wait? At Manhattan University, love those guys. You don't have to start over. With transfer-friendly pathways, your credits count, and you keep moving forward. From day one, you're part of Jasper Nation, preparing for the real world. And with New York City just a train away, opportunity is everywhere. Ready to move forward without missing a step? Visit manhattan.edu/transfer and enroll today. Manhattan University. Don't start over. Move forward.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, more big developments tied to the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. Of course, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. Just a few minutes ago, now a second video coming out from the family of Nancy Guthrie. Of course, yesterday, Savannah Guthrie, her brother Cameron, and her sister Annie pleading with the public, but also pleading with their mother to stay strong and pleading with the alleged kidnapper to bring her back safe, saying, "We are ready to talk." They have not heard anything from the kidnapper, according to many reports out there and according to law enforcement. And so clearly they are getting very desperate, understandably, because now we're learning, and this is extraordinary today. I don't know if you guys watched that news conference. I was glued to that news conference today that took place with the sheriff and also members of the FBI. What did you think after watching that news conference? There were actually a lot of details in there. It was pretty fascinating. And some of the details to me were the timeline. We're going to get into that. But also, what was interesting is what he wouldn't say, the sheriff. Some interesting stuff, sort of family related. We'll get into that. Interesting that he won't say whether there was forced entry into the home or not. You would think that would be out there to provide clues. He was giving a lot of other details. It was interesting that they would not provide that information. So why are they withholding certain things? Or maybe they don't know. But the sheriff said that they're going to put up billboards all over the state of Arizona saying, if you see something, here's where you need to call. It's a $50,000 reward for the safe return of Nancy Guthrie, which we pray happens soon, or leading to the arrest of whoever took her. They clearly believe that these ransom notes that we were talking about the other day, that there's some substantiation tied to it. That's not just some random. And the reason is, today we also learned, this was amazing, that in the notes, and when I saw TMZ's Harvey Levin, I've known Harvey a long time. And so in these notes, he referenced that the writer of this, the attacker, the kidnapper, said she has an Apple Watch and here's where it was placed in the home. That was interesting. The other was, here's a knocked out floodlight. There's a damaged floodlight, and had some other information. So they believe pretty much that those letters at least should be taken seriously, that there's someone who has information and inside knowledge on the case. And the demand was by 5 o'clock today to hand over X amount, millions of dollars in cryptocurrency, in Bitcoin. They had a verified account. Apparently it's a real account, or else. And then they said, if not, on Monday, the actions will be much more consequential. That is a gut punch. You can imagine what thoughts could be running through the family's mind of what is more consequential than taking an 84-year-old mother from her bed in the middle of the night. What if the money doesn't come? What would they do? That's very scary. This is a dire, dire warning. And you could tell that the FBI and the local sheriff are deeply concerned, as I think they should be. What did you glean from the case, and where do you think they need to look? What do you find the most troubling? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And this is The Rita Cosby Show. We're also going to talk about all these people in Minneapolis who are setting up checkpoints. Literally, they are expecting to have 1,000 checkpoints set up by citizens. These are not law enforcement. These are citizens who are pretending to be like law enforcement, asking for IDs, barricading roads, asking for drivers, hey, can you show us a photo ID? Can you show us all this information? We need to know if you're ICE. So what if it's an ICE person who works for Immigration and Customs Enforcement? What, they're going to get their license and dox them or show up at their house or follow them to the hotel? This is darn right frightening. And anybody who is setting up any of those blockades should be arrested immediately. Where is Jacob Fry, the mayor, and where is the governor, Tim Walz? They are sitting on their hands as the city is collapsing and law and order is completely collapsing in Minneapolis. So we're going to talk about that and a lot more. First tonight, let's talk about these new leads that just came out. Here is the son. This is the son of Nancy Guthrie. This is Savannah Guthrie's brother, Cameron. He was the one you saw in the video last night. He was kind of stoic in the video last night. Yet tonight, he seemed a little more animated. And clearly, maybe they think it's a male kidnapper. Typically it is. But if it's a male kidnapper, maybe they think having the guy, as opposed to the sister coming out, having a guy saying, hey, listen, we're ready to talk, that maybe the kidnapper would connect better with a guy to a guy. Who knows? But here is Cameron, Savannah Guthrie's brother, pleading with his mom's captors. Take a listen.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
That was pretty direct. We are waiting for contact. Talk to us. You don't need to call law enforcement. Talk to us. The one thing I'll tell you that's very chilling, and I was just watching again Harvey Levin on TMZ, and Harvey was saying that the way this letter was written, and I didn't know this until a few moments ago, they essentially said, you're never going to be able to track us down. This will be the only communication. In other words, we're not going to be communicating with you. Here it is. Here's the first deadline. If that passes, the next one will be, quote, much more consequential, much more serious, which is, again, very chilling. But the fact that the writer, the author of this letter, who sent it to TMZ and 2 local outlets, that's another thing that's interesting. Why did they send it to the local outlets versus NBC Network, where Savannah Guthrie works as Today Show host, a big name? Obviously, they know she works for NBC, which clearly means maybe it's somebody in the area. A lot of people seem to think that have been looking at this case. I tend to agree, too, because why wouldn't you send it to NBC or some of the national ones, as opposed to sending it to these 2 local stations and TMZ? So maybe it's someone who's in Tucson area. That, I think, could also provide a clue. But today we also heard from Harvey Levin. TMZ got one of those ransom letters early on. And he said that this person does specifically say that this will be the only communication, that law enforcement will not be able to track us down. And basically, this is it. Also, he said that the Bitcoin address where this is supposed to be sent to is real, and that the FBI has had a hard time tracking where that email is from. And that the letter says, this will be our only communication. Police won't be able to help you. In other words, you should take it upon yourselves to help us and to give us the money. But maybe there's not going to be any talk back. That's really scary, because usually there's some negotiation. Hey, here it is. Here's proof of life. Here's this. This person seems to think that's it. So what's going to happen on Monday in the afternoon if money is not sent over to that Bitcoin address? Will the family send money over? What do you think is going to happen next? This is really an unbelievable situation. And folks in the FBI, I've talked to so many of them today. They've never seen anything like this. They find it extraordinary that there's this individual and that there's not been any clues. Arizona also is a 1 license plate state. You don't have to have a license plate in the front and the back. So even if there's some readers that might detect on cameras a car moving or something like that, you still may not get the license plate. But you could certainly get a make and model, and we haven't even heard that there's a vehicle. We haven't even heard that there's a suspect. I mean, there are so many questions here tonight, and this case gets more and more puzzling by the minute. Here is Sheriff Chris Nanos, but he did make a declarative statement saying that he hopes and prays that she is still alive, and he believes so maybe based on these demands coming from these ransom letters.
We saw last night the family, they just hurt, understandably so. And so I really want you to know this entire team here, those behind me, and our community are hurting with you. We really just want Mom back, okay? Right now, we believe Nancy is still out there. We want her home. Our department, the Sheriff's Department, along with all of our partners at the FBI, have been working around the clock. And we just want her home and find a way to get to the bottom of all of this, just as you do. But I have other partners out there who have stepped up, and you've probably noticed them in the last few days, if not the last few hours, and you're going to see more of that. Well, I made a decision to contact our PCRIT team, and those of you not local, that's our Pima Regional Critical Incident Team. It's made up of law enforcement officers from this entire valley. Pasquayaki Police Department, Tucson Police Department.
And all those other partners. And by the way, he also walked through the timeline. I want to play this because this timeline is absolutely critical. Listen to the 41-minute window that absolutely is key. Here it is.
So I'll go over it with you. You can see it on the board there, but at about 5:32 p.m., these are approximate times. 5:32 p.m., Nancy travels to her local family's home for dinner and playing games with the family, and just visiting. At 9:48 p.m., which is very consistent to what we were told by the family, that Nancy was dropped off at home, and we know that because we have a garage door open at approximately, I can't stress that enough, at approximately 9:48 p.m. At 9:50 p.m., that garage door closes. It is that time we assume that Nancy's home and probably going to bed. Sunday morning, early morning at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:12 a.m., software detects a person on a camera, but there's no video available. They had no subscription, and therefore it would rewrite itself. It just kind of loops, right, and covers up. That's what our analysis teams have told us. We're not done with that. We'll do all we can, but that's what it says. So that detects a person on camera. Could that be an animal? I imagine that's possible. We don't know that. We just have no video. But we're not giving up on that. 2:28. Nancy's pacemaker app shows that it was a disconnect from the phone. And at 11:56 a.m., the family checks on Nancy and discovers her missing. And at 12:03 p.m., 911 is called in to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. I believe it's about approximately 10 minutes later, 12 minutes later, our patrol teams arrive. They see the scene, and we start our response with our search and rescue teams and our detectives from homicide and various units. In fact, every unit here, I think somebody questioned, how come there's an ICAC member out here or this member? Everybody in our criminal investigations team is a part of this team and part of this investigative effort.
You know, one thing I just heard that's very interesting. If you listen to what he just said and he walks you through everything, he says that the family checks on Nancy at 11:56 and then they call 911 at 12:03. That's only 7 minutes. That's not a lot of time. Maybe they thought maybe she could have wandered off or something, been in the neighborhood, visiting a neighbor, doing a couple things. That's not a lot of time to check. And the reason I say that is maybe there were obviously a lot of signs of struggle or something else in the house that as soon as they walked in, they realized that something was horribly, horribly wrong. That's why I'm saying that, because it's 7 minutes from when you check on Nancy to realizing I got to call 911, that this looks like a crime, that she's not just over at a neighbor's house or something or visiting somebody or doing something. Clearly, something nefarious triggered their thoughts as soon as they walked into the house and realized pretty quickly that obviously something was horribly, horribly wrong. What are your thoughts tonight? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, and we will take your calls when we come back here on The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
It is the case that is gripping the country. And just a little bit ago, Savannah Guthrie's brother Cameron putting out a plea. You could tell they are getting desperate, especially now that it looks like maybe that ransom note, maybe it's accurate. And the fact that they're saying that if something doesn't happen by Monday, if they don't get the money sent to this Bitcoin account, well, then there will be very serious consequences. Let's go to Norm on line 4. Norm, your thoughts tonight. This is really incredible and heartbreaking so far.
I think that the kidnapper is, I think anybody who does kidnapping in 2025, 2026 is stupid. You can't get away with this. I mean, they're not, whoever did this is not going to get away. And the fact that they're asking for Bitcoin, I mean, look, I don't care what they say, Bitcoin, all that stuff, anything involving accounts, it's got to be traceable. Okay, it's got to be traceable. I mean, theoretically, old school, if I was a kidnapper, I'd be asking for gold or something like that. Or I would be asking for, I don't know, unmarked bills or something. The fact that this is some, I don't know, I'm starting to think it's like some grifter in the neighborhood or something like that. The problem is,
Norm, by the way, Norm, you're right. It seems
he's not getting away with it.
Well, I hope you're right. But more importantly, I hope she gets home safe. The issue is, Norm, and I hear what you're saying. It seems like very unprofessional on one hand. And then on the other hand, here we are. I mean, it happened on Saturday night. They noticed she was missing Sunday. And it seems like they're still, don't have a suspect or they're not in touch. They're clueless.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Lewiston, New York, where Lewiston police released body cam footage showing a dramatic rescue in upstate New York where a group of officers saved cows trapped in a burning barn from becoming obviously killed. It's really incredible to see. Well, this past month, the officers there, this is from the Lewiston Police Department and New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, responded to a report of a barn fire on Sanders Road in Lewiston. Now, the fire was reported just before 11 a.m. and it was contained to the barn, but there were very big flames. And when the officers arrived, they advised that cows were still trapped inside the barn. They immediately started assessing the situation, quickly working together to make their way into the barn. The officers got inside under very tough conditions as the barn was filled with flames and massive smoke. Once they located the cows, which could be seen behind a locked gate, they worked quickly to cut chains on the gate as the smoke thickened. They then freed many of the cows, got them all out of the barn safely before the massive fire spread even more. The fire ended up being contained to just the barn, and no residences nearby were impacted. The fire department and police department and others said it was the fast action of law enforcement helping to save those beautiful animals. And bravo to our great men and women in blue. Well, we are talking about the case of Nancy Guthrie and all these chilling new details coming out tonight. Also, these roadblocks that they're putting up in Minneapolis. It's unbelievable. They're putting up about 1,000 of them is their plan. And what's the reaction from Jacob Fry there on the ground, the mayor and the governor of Minnesota? Nothing. They're not saying anything. These people are completely out of control. And the rhetoric is completely out of control as well. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Here also are the details coming out just a little bit ago in the case of Nancy Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother. The head special agent there, Heath Yankee, who spoke there right there at the case when all the details came out, announced there's a $50,000 reward. They're also putting up these billboards hoping that people are going to say, oh, I saw something fishy in the area. But there are a lot of interesting details in this case, and boy, is it perplexing. I think there's something tied to the family, guys. I'm just going to say it. I don't know what. It may be a revenge. Maybe they got the mother for some reason. Maybe it's someone who was hired as a hand, like who knows, a cleaning lady or a gardener or somebody that a family member hired. Maybe was there somebody who owed money to somebody in the family? You don't know. But there's something fishy because when law enforcement was asked today, who dropped her off? They wouldn't say if it was the daughter, Annie, not Savannah, but Annie, or Annie's husband. Why is that a secret? I don't know why that's a secret. They seem to go through all this other specificity, which we just went through, and for some reason they're not putting specificity on that. Why would that be? And then they went over with a device over to Annie's house. This is Savannah Guthrie's house, the sisters, and they brought a Celebrite device. Now, a Celebrite device is essentially mirroring your social media path. You bring it over so then you can get a mirroring of somebody's iPhone or their, laptop, something like that. And they brought that over to the sister's house. I don't know. It's just interesting. Maybe it's somebody that they're not aware of, or maybe it's somebody that they think maybe a family member's aware of, or a family member has a little more information. I don't know. It's just worth throwing out there because there's so many questions tonight. And they seem to be all over the place. I agree with what Norm was saying, was that, on one hand, it seems like it's kind of bumpy, this case, that they're asking for Bitcoin and a whole bunch of other things. But what I was also saying to Norm is that they're bumpy and maybe not sophisticated. But then on the other hand, they're sophisticated enough that every law enforcement agency asset that's possible at this time is on this case. President Trump called Savannah Guthrie personally. She is a Today Show host, very well-known TV host. He's put all this incredible assets and attention. So the best of the best right now with the FBI and others are helping. And Arizona police has been looking at it too. And yet, if this person is a bumpy person, not a very, sophisticated person, how did they get away with this far? Honestly, I'm stunned. I actually thought maybe it seemed a little clumsy. It seemed a little this. It seemed a little that. But then if that's the case, they should have gotten the person within 24, 48 hours, especially if potentially they might be in the area. So this really is perplexing for so many reasons, guys. And now the latest word again from this TMZ from Harvey Levin, who is the head guy there. I've known Harvey for years. And Harvey was reading or talking a little bit about the letter because they got the letter. Remember, I think they got the first one. And he seems to think there will be no more communication coming from the abductor. Like he's made it clear, this is at least that's what he put in the letter. So if he sticks to what he put in the letter, there was a deadline today. It passed at 5 o'clock local time in Arizona. And the next one, there will be very serious consequences, according to that letter, if something doesn't happen, if the money doesn't get transferred by Monday afternoon. What does that mean? And what would you do if it was your family member? I don't know, you guys. I'm being honest with you. I think I'd find somebody who can send the Bitcoin. If I believe that this person is accurate, I would try to do whatever I could to get that family member back. That's my answer. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Here is the special agent from the FBI today talking about this ransom note and again saying the deadline's in it.
5 p.m. You say 5 p.m. deadline today. Is that the deadline? Oh, maybe that's for the FBI.
Yes.
Can you just give us some sound on that? Because that's a big deal. That's within hours about that 5 p.m. deadline per the ransom note.
We are.
And then what's supposed to happen after that?
So the ransom note that was distributed to the media did make a demand for 5 p.m. today. And if a transfer wasn't made, then I think a second demand was for next Monday. We're not going to go beyond that, but that was the ransom note the media received.
Did it indicate what would happen if they didn't meet that ransom?
We're not going to go into those specifics. Thank you.
5 p.m. Eastern, I'm sorry, I know it's not Arizona. It's 5 p.m.
I don't.
5 p.m.
And then, sorry about that, Inside Edition, Jim Murray.
A special agent Young.
And you can tell it was in the middle of a news conference and they were asking journalists a lot of questions. They were spewing it out there. I'm surprised they answered a lot of them. The other thing the special agent from the FBI said, and take a listen to this, is why they believe there were some facts in the ransom note that led them to believe they're legitimate.
What was it about this apparent ransom note that now 3 days on you first haven't been able to validate, and second, it warranted informing the Guthries of its existence?
So the ransom note that was sent out there, obviously every lead in this case we are taking extremely serious.
But not everyone is presented to the family. Why this one?
Because this was the ransom that came in and it had facts associated with a deadline, with a monetary value they were asking for. So at that point...
What were some of those facts, if you can? Because there's been a lot of speculation, as you know, if you can set the record straight.
Yeah, the ransom itself, one talked about an Apple Watch and one talked about a floodlight. We're not going to go into specifics. It's very important that we keep this investigation moving forward, and we don't want to put more facts out there that others then can use to try to profit from this.
So lots of details. And then we just heard a little bit ago from Harvey Levin of TMZ saying it wasn't just that she had an Apple Watch, it was where the Apple Watch was placed. He was saying essentially in the home. And then also that there was a broken floodlight. So that's a lot of specificity, which would lead me to believe that if that's true and some other details, that maybe indeed there's more to this. Maybe this is, this really is the individual. The family clearly is concerned and taking it seriously enough to put out that other video that the brother just put out a few minutes ago. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Michael in Queens on line 2. Go ahead, Michael, your thoughts.
Yes, hello, ma'am. Good evening to you. As I continue on from yesterday's point of view, I say this. This is not that complicated a situation from my assessment of it. Why do I say that? I say it for this reason. What Norm said before that called in about it being somewhat misguided in the sense they asked for Bitcoin, I pointed out yesterday, and that's not a bad take on his behalf respectfully, but I pointed out yesterday they asked for that because that's something that can be readily transferable and then reroutable immediately, so they want to quicken negotiations. I said also there must be an understanding that this woman at 84 years old may have conditions, so I say that that was already taken into account, and if the area was somewhat obscured by darkness and cloud. Nobody, even military or police enforcement, will not go into an area that has that kind of conveyance unless they already have a pre-routed measure. So somehow, even if they have night vision and infrared, they still will have that taken into account. So these people, if they did that, they had time, they had estimations for conditions on health, they had regards to sustain her, and they also wanted immediate negotiations. The fact that this is delaying this long is not buying well for this lady, because even if she is able to sustain from what they would take into account, she still will be under amazing duress, which is going to complicate the factor of her being actually able to sustain till they actually can negotiate for her freedom.
Now, let me ask you, Michael, you made some really superb points. Okay, so let me ask you another detail that you hit it off about how scared this woman is. In this is TMZ who got the ransom note. And again, this just came out in the last hour. Harvey Levin was saying that in that letter that they got, that seems to be corroborating at least some of the issues with it. It says she is safe, but she is scared. And then they also say, we're going to, we want X amount in this Bitcoin account, and there will be no further communications. So just like you said, how do they reach out? You could tell they're desperate, and you can't blame them. I mean, if it was your mother that was abducted, and then you get this letter, now you're hearing, wow, like it's corroborating, and then it says no communication. That's really scary. I think it's more dangerous than someone who says, hey, I want to talk. At least it's sort of starting dialogue, and then you could get the FBI somehow communicating with that person and starting this negotiation, a hostage negotiation type situation. They're not even opening the door to that. So I'm really worried, Michael, and clearly the family's really worried, understandably, right?
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, again, you have to take into account this: the FBI, as brilliant a factor as they can be, and often are, it is not a guarantee that they will be. There's many a case they do not, and they actually are not able to bring a negotiated point, particularly if the individuals who commit these crimes are steadfast and they are capable in the capacity of actually utilizing everything to their advantage by prearranging and then following through. Remember, It's all about execution. All about that. If they are that, they are not going to want to deliberate the case with the FBI, and that's why they've already stated that in prior to that note, that message to TMZ. So I say again, two messages have been brought out by the family, by the lady and by her brother, but for the family members. I say at this point to just simply say, let's do business. Please do business. What do you want? Let's just get this to happen and stop all the other pleas. They wanted to humanize it. They wanted to put the FBI wrote out that messaging to get it personalized. These people are not responding. It's simply because they don't want to get involved with that. They just want what they want readily, quickly, and get it done, because this lady and the time wasted is costing them periods of time to be caught. And but
hang on, hey, Michael, hang on. The one thing, though, it sounds like from the letters that this guy's made himself clear that he wants X amount of money in Bitcoin, and that's it. Like, in other words, if I don't get it now by Monday, that's it. Like, you have one deadline. If you don't get it, very severe consequences, which to me is a really dire message. But it sounds like he is saying, here's what I want, and I want it now, and there will be no other communication. So what do you do?
Absolutely. What you do is you, at this point, just call out and plead to one more message, say, let's just bargain, period.
It doesn't sound like he wants to bargain, Michael, and I wish that were the case. I agree with you. Maybe it needs to have more of a business approach, like you said, because clearly, like you said, there's two reasons. You talked to all these FBI profilers I have over the years, that there's two reasons why people kidnap people. One is for money, and two is for revenge. And so far, it seems like the first one is the case, which, if that's the case, hopefully they can track that individual down. If it's revenge, maybe it's close to a family member or something like that. That's why I kind of keep going back. There's something there with the family, Michael, and I'm not sure what. I'm not going to suspect them of doing something. Maybe it's something that they were in touch with somebody unbeknownst to them who had nefarious purposes. There's something, because like you said, there was so much pre-planning, and I think you hit it on the head. The other thing, Michael, real quick before I let you go, the getting in the house. I thought it was interesting, going in the house and getting the camera out. Some people suspect maybe the person went through the back door, reached in, knew how to reach and break the glass to get in, and then go in and take the camera off. So I think you're hitting on a lot of really important stuff, Michael. And let's pray that this whoever this individual is responds and doesn't just sort of sit in silence until Monday. That will be chilling. Michael, thank you very much. 1-800-848-9222. Michael had some great points. Wow. What do you guys think? We'll talk more after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up on the Rita Cosby Show, we will talk about this case and new developments also that are coming in tied to Nancy Guthrie. Also, President Trump talking about Minnesota today. He was at the National Prayer Breakfast. I've been there a whole bunch of times. It's really a beautiful, spectacular event. And President Trump talked about those protests not that long ago at that church where Don Lemon was, remember? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to John in Colorado on line 2. Go ahead, John, your thoughts tonight.
Yeah, hi, Rita. I think Nancy, she lives near the border between the United States and Mexico.
Yep.
And I just have this weird feeling it might be the drug cartels might have taken her.
You know what, John? It might be because it is 60 miles, apparently, from her house to the border. And also, they brought in CBP, the Customs and Border Protection, pretty early on because of the distance. The only thing is, I wonder, if it is the cartels, why would they pick her? Why would the cartels be after her?
Well, her daughter is the host for America Today.
Yep, for Today Show, yep.
All right. And I wonder if she's related to Arlo Guthrie, the singer.
I don't know if she is. I'm not sure, but clearly the daughter is doing very well. It just seems odd that they would pick, Savannah Guthrie's mother.
That's what I mean. It's very odd. The
it
whole
is
thing.
odd,
and that's why I think it might be somebody a little more sinister, like these drug cartels, and they're right down the road there.
Well, and also they seem sophisticated.
Around at the nearby drug cartels.
Hey, John, they seem sophisticated, don't you think? I mean, that's the other thing.
Right.
Because even though they seem, there's a little bit of, I use the phrase bumpy, rudimentary. On the other hand, there have been the top of the top, federal agents and local there working on this case. And so far, they don't seem to have any leads. So it does seem like it's someone who's fairly sleuth and, to Michael's point, prearranged a lot of these things. Your thoughts?
Well, when you go around destroying the drug cartels' drug boats coming from Mexico to California, and you're blowing them up, it's going to piss them off, and this is what they could do.
Well, they could probably do a lot of things. I still don't know why they'd go after an 84-year-old woman in the middle of the night. And you would think maybe they'd put that in the note if that was the case. But we'll see. Boy, I hope it's not the cartels, because that is a very scary premise. We're going to continue more after the break, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to The Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.